So hello everyone. On this video, I will be discussing how are we going to incorporate SQLite database to our Visual Basic .NET project. So we will be discussing first the databases, and then the other one is the integration of SQL database. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to install the software that we will be needing. So first is we need a Visual Studio. So it could be 2013 and 2015, 2017, and 2019. So prior versions to 2013, I think the library itself will not work. So you have to make sure that your Visual Studio is set up to Visual Studio 2013. Okay? So the second thing that we are going to do is to create or to download the SQLite Studio. So you can simply type SQLite Studio here. Okay, so you can see here that we will be using SQLite Studio for us, for it to create a database that we will be using as we integrate it on our software. Okay, so since I've already downloaded SQLite Studio, I can simply open it on my browser, so SQLite Studio. So you don't have to install or anything, so you just have to extract the program and then open it immediately. Okay. So let me just open the .exe file. Okay. So while waiting for it, let me just close this existing database. Okay. Okay. So let me just open this for a while. But the first thing that we need to do before we create a database is we need to create a project where we will be integrating this software. So the first thing that we need to do is to create a project. Let's name it. So let's create this project. Let's say Windows Forms application.net. And let's name it as SQLite VB. Okay. So on this part of the video, we'll be seeing the different libraries that we have to install. Excuse me. We have to install so that the SQLite integration will work. Okay. So let me just go here, right click this one, and then go to Manage NuGet Packages. Okay. So let's just wait while it loads. Okay. So the first thing that we need to search is for SQLite. Okay, let me just type SQLite here. So we must see an SQLite that we could install. Okay, so we could simply install this one. Okay, so let's hit install. Actually, there are different SQLite library that we have to install. The first is the SQLite 3.13. Okay, so I've already finished installing this one, and also the SQLite data system. So let me just look it for again. So okay, let me just look for it. Okay, this one, the other one, the system data SQLite. So we also have to install this one, so it will be able to integrate the different functions. Okay, so let's just wait for it to install. Okay, so these dependencies are already installed on my system, so I just have to reinstall it in on this project. So basically, it will take time if you download it from scratch. So just I hope that you have an internet connection as you download these dependencies or these libraries. Okay, so it's still installing, so we could just wait for it for a while. Okay, so since we already created the project for SQLite VB, let's go to its folder. Okay, open File Explorer. Okay, so we will be adding here our database. So basically, we need to look for the debug folder that we could install our database. Okay, maybe we could simply add here our database. Let me just copy this one. Control C, then Control. Uh, or maybe we could simply direct this on the database file itself. Okay, let me just copy this one. Okay, so let me click this one. Database, add a database, and then click this green. screen one, and then let's go to this directory. Okay, so we could create a project, let's say information database. Okay, let's hit save. Okay. So by now, we already created a database file. So this database file is where we are going to store the different information. So the first thing that we need to do is to add tables. So we have to create tables so that this is where the information that we will be extracting. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to, let's name this table as person. Okay, so most of the time, let's use caps or even capitalized letters for easier access. Okay, let me just drag this down. And the next one is, let's add a unique ID. Let's say person ID. So this is the primary key, and this is also unique, so it can't be repeated multiple times. So it's a unique key. Okay, so the data type for this one is integer. Okay, so let me just click OK for this one. And the next thing that we need to add is, let's say, the name, um, name, or first name, and then let's say this is a text. Okay, oops. Say, and this is not null, so we will not allow that this data will not have any value. Okay, and let me just add it not null as well. The next one is, let's add sex. So let's also treat this as text. Okay, so this is also not null. Okay, so by now we already created a table. So this is the query of how you create a table. But since we already have a UI for it, so we don't have to go through it one by one. So we just simply use the UI to create a table. Okay, so let me just click OK. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to add values. So this is a direct way to add values. This is just for testing purposes. So let me just show it to you. So let me click add, let's say one, first name, Dane. Next one is male. Let me just click this one. Okay, so let me add another value. So let's say two, let's say let's say female. Okay. Let me just hit this one. Okay, so we already have a data. So how are we going to extract this information from the database? So we could simply do that by going to our query editor, okay? Or we could simply say select. So select statement does is it selects the value. So when we put asterisk, it treats it that it gets all the information. So we could simply get it all, and let's say from what table we are in. So we are currently in the information database that you can see here. So from tables, and the name of the table is person. Let's say person. Okay, so when we hit this enter, we should see the different information that are stored on our database. So let me just hit this run. Okay, so you can see here that we already extracted the values. So what if we just want to get the first name and the sex and without the person ID? So we could simply do that by saying first name, okay, comma, and then sex. Okay, so we are getting the table or the column name. So when we hit this again, you can see here that there is no person ID. So that's how we create this basic information, how we get these informations from. Okay, so actually there are also update, delete, insert. So it is already stated on your module. So be sure to look on your modules, okay? I'm sorry. So for example, we want to get the data with a person ID that is equal to, let's say, 1 or it's equal to 2. So we could simply do that, and let me just erase this one. Let's say asterisk, and then from person. However, we want to get the value with a person ID that is equal to 2. And how are we going to do that? We will be using the where clause. So when we say where, and then the person ID, is equal to, let's say, 1. So when we hit enter, see, you can see here that we can get Dane male. Whatever, if we want to get the person ID with 2, we can easily select this data using the where clause. So that's basically how we use the database, or how we create a database, and how are we going to integrate it at our software. So I'll be showing it to you one by one. Okay, so let me just minimize this once. Okay, let me just hit okay here to install. Okay, accept. So it's now adding the packages. Okay, so you can see here that there are packages that being installed for SQLite data. So these are the different libraries that we will be importing later. Okay, so you can see here that there is already a system data SQLite. Okay, so it automatically installed all the software that we will be needing. Okay, so basically that's the simplest way how to install the libraries for our SQLite. So the next thing that we are going to do is first is to check whether our database is already existing. And to do that, let me just double click this one. So this is a form loader. So when we say form loader, when you run this program and when you debug this program, this will go directly to this function. So it will hit run immediately. Okay. So well, let's say, let's declare the different variables that we will be needing. Next, first is the db command. So this is where the query is being added. Okay. So the next one is private binding. Oops, binding source as binding source. Okay, so let me just explain it later one by one. Oops, we forgot the term dim. Oh wait, uh, this is supposed to be outside. So this is treated as a global variable. So when we say global variable, it necessarily can be accessible to any functions. Okay, so the next one here is we will add the path for our database. So private db path, or maybe db name as string. So the name of our database is named as, what is it named? Information DB. So information.db. So actually, we are already on the debug folder. So if this doesn't run, uh, we will be transferring our database on a different folder. Okay. So the next one here is private db path as string. Okay. So application startup path. We could use parent. Okay. There's no parent function. Never mind. So let me just hit this one. Okay. And then our DB name. So this is the directory of our database. Okay. So the next one here is the private con string as string is equal to data source. Okay, so db path. So this is where the path goes. db path, and okay, the version, and we are currently using the latest version, so we'll be using the version 3. Okay, so the last variable so we to declare is private connection as new SQLite connection on string. Okay. Okay, so there is no currently a SQLite connection, so we need to import this one. And to do that, we could simply say import as a system, data, and then SQLite. Okay, so it's automatically added uh, in our project. Okay, so private command as new SQLite command. Okay, okay. So we are almost done on our declaration. So the first thing that we need to do is to check whether our file is already found. So let me just hit build so that it will just create a code for this one. So we are not actually running the code, but we are just building our software. Oops, I hit start. It same goes by that one. So when you are hitting build, let me just close this one. You will see that there's already a new file created on this one. So we go bin and then debug. Okay, so you can already see here that these are the different information that has been used to our project. Okay, so since this is where the data will be transferring our information, so information DB, let me just cut it on this part. Okay, so let me hit paste. Okay, so it's still open here. Let me just close this one. Okay, so let me go back to Visual Studio, the folder, try again. And okay, so we already reallocated this one. So let's check the connection first. So connection that state is connection that open. And then, okay, let me just add another connection here. So connection that open. So we could already start uh, with our SQLite connection. So connection that open. Okay, so why is it connection state? Okay, so there's a mistake on the end. So command that connection is equal to connection. Okay, so next is command that text. So the command that text is used. This is the query that we are going to use. So basically, we could add here the select statement. So select. Oh, before anything else, let's first check the connection. So I'm sorry, I'm going advanced. Okay, so let me just comment this one. So let us first check if the connection is good. So the connection is, let's say, ampersand connection state to string. Okay, so let me just hit run. So we should see here that the connection is good. Okay, the connection is open. So basically, our database is now recognized to our project. So there's no error there. So we could already comment this one. Okay, so let me just comment this one. That's for checking purposes only. So the next thing that we're going to do is to create a command. So as earlier, you can see here, let me just reopen our database. Click hit this folder, begin, debug, information DB. Okay, so you can see here that we could simply get the different information. Uh, wait, okay. Okay, so my SQLite Studio crashed. Sorry about that. So let me just reopen that one. Okay, so oops. Okay, so let me hit this again. Okay. Okay. So you can see here that we already opened this one. So let's say select let's select a database here so it doesn't open. Okay, so let's select from person. Is it the person table? Yes, it is. So, okay, so you can simply hear that this must be the data that we need to obtain. So we could simply do that by using this statement. So select that, uh, select asterisk from, or you can use capital letter as well, person. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to capitalize or not. So the SQL automatically does it for you, okay? So the next thing that we need to do is to use dim RDR as SQLite data reader. So data reader is used if we want to get the different information that's been read on our SQL. So this is the things that we need to use to get the different information, okay? So the next thing that we're going to do is let's just use the using term. Okay, so using RDR while RDR that read, okay, message box. Okay, so we can simply get the data using a message box, but it's not good or a good practice to do this. So I'm just doing this for the sake of showing you the output, okay? So RDR dot get int 32. So 0 is states the first column. So 0, column 0, column 1, column 2. So this is what we use. So it's a number based. And then let's say and RDR get string. Okay. So I will not be getting the sex. Let's just focus on this one. Oops. Okay. So after this one, we should close the connection. So why is it necessary to close the connection? So that we will not establish a lag or latency because you are still accessing the database even without using. So we need to close the database, okay? So let me just hit run. So we should see two text box or two message box popping out once we run this code. Okay, so first is one is Dane, and the next one is second is So that's basically how we output or how we get the values for this data. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do is what if we don't want to use or to get the different information and we want to output it on a table. So we could simply do that using a data grid. So let me just comment this one here. Okay. So to do that, we will be going to our form. Okay. And then let's just go to toolbox and then data grid. Okay, so data grid view. Okay. Okay, there seems I forgot to check again. Let's say data grid view. Okay, so let me just remove that check there. Okay, so now it's done. Okay, yes, we already have this one. So let me just rename this to data grid view. Okay, so going back to our form, we could simply store the values immediately by using this function. So dim table as new data table. Okay, so table that load, wait, that load, and then our database. So RDR. Okay, so we are not yet done. So, okay, so this is supposed to be inside the if statement. Okay. And then, after which, uh, after this one, we will be using data grid view our data grid. Okay, so that data source then is equal to our table. Okay, so we should see similar results for this one. Okay, so let's run this code. Okay, so you can see here that we already have a similar result of what's on our database. Okay, so what if you want to replace the information? You can simply write it down on this query. Let's say you want the first, what you call that? You want hmm, the first name and the sex. So we can simply do that by doing this first name and then sex. Okay, of what we did earlier is same goes of what's inside this query. Okay, so you can see here that we only outputted the first name and then the sex. So that's how basically you could do this as well. So you could replace a query, you could test different queries inside this SQLite Studio. So everything becomes easier after you download this SQLite Studio. Okay, so if you have further questions of how you're gonna edit this one, you could simply see our modules or you could simply leave a comment on our class. So thank you very much and I hope you learned and see you on our next discussion.